Hi all, as you all know, this is Robbie. We have been running over 100 for days now, and I guess we're going to be running about 100 for the next few days. And I have been doing everything to save my garden that I physically can without killing myself. There's a lot of things you can do. I'm going to say, knock on wood, everything's going really, really good. And so I want to give some tips of what I'm doing. Maybe it will give you guys some help or ideas. Maybe you can give me ideas. As you know, I like to garden in both pots and in the ground. So what I do is I have pots all over. So even if I have a plant growing in the ground, I will put a pot many times next to it. Even if I don't plant in the pot, I'll have soil in there or wood chips or something, and I'll water the pot, and there'll be some holes in the bottom. And I put a pot there, it will slowly seep down and water the plant next to it. So it's kind of like a slow drip system, but I don't have anything on a drip system. I use pots. So I layer everything. Keep that in mind by layering all through your garden, whether you're container gardening, whether you've got your plants in the ground. Anytime you put something on top, when you lift the pot, it will be nice and wet underneath. You know how if you go fishing and you're looking for worms, you go lift rocks and you find worms under there? That's because it's damp. So I do a lot of layering all over. The big thing you can do, or I found out I can do, I don't want to tell anybody what to do. What I do is I found out when we were getting into a massive heat wave like we are now, and we're going to have heat waves all through the summer now into the fall. We can have heat waves and hot weather well into October. So they're just starting now. The best thing you can do is go through all your vegetable plants. I guess you can do it with flowers too. And eliminate and remove all the fruit it doesn't need. So if your tomatoes are red, pick them or close to it. If you've got brown leaves or yellowing leaves on there, especially yellow leaves, get them off. And if there's weeds around, it's good to get the weeds out if you've got some weeds, because they'll be sucking up water too. And you want the plant to get all the water you can get to it. So that's what I do. I just kind of go through and you'll see, because you know what I'm doing, and it works. It works really good, because why make your poor plant bring up all the nutrients and water to part of the plant it doesn't need anymore? It doesn't need those leaves. So I do that. And the other thing is you can mulch by not just layering, but even maybe some bark or wood chips or grass clippings. Sometimes grass clippings can mold, but you know, if you have, that's all you've got, you can use it. Leaves work. Gee, you could grab an old t-shirt, if you had old t-shirts you were throwing away, and put that around your plants. And even an old cotton t-shirt, this is a towel, but an old cotton t-shirt would even create a mulch where it will hold the water in. Boy, am I sweating. It will hold the water. We don't have air conditioning. It will hold the water in for the plant, and that's what you need to do. And the other thing too is water as early as you can in the morning. It doesn't have to be super early, but water in the morning, water all your plants, and try not in the morning to get the leaves wet. It's okay if you do it, you know, when it's not super hot, but when it's really, really hot, you don't want to get the leaves wet. And the reason is, if you wet the leaves and the sun starts to get really hot, 100 degrees, I mean, we're running over 110. Yesterday, I thought we were at about 112, 115, but my daughter said no, there were areas that were even 120. So what it does is, if you wet the leaf, it will just burn it. It will turn into a brown, crispy thing and just burn it. So you don't want to get the leaves wet. You want to take your hose and you want to put the hose on the base of the plant. When you put it on the base, it's watering the roots, but it is not watering the leaves, and this way they'll suck it up. Don't worry if you go out during the day and you see your plant drooping. I mean, all mine yesterday drooped. They all looked like they were dead. Everything. The collard was drooping. I had my big collard patch just was so sad. All the leaves were drooping. And then my squash was drooping. It looked so sad. It looked like an umbrella that fell apart and it was closing. That was all. My zucchini and squash were drooping. My red vein sorrel, I thought that was a total loss when I went out there, and that had drooped. But I knew I had watered it. I put the hose in there earlier and I soaked it really good. Later on in the day, everything popped up as if nothing happened. You will lose some leaves, and the leaves will turn yellow and start to go. Just keep trimming those off. You cannot trim everything off your plant because the plant needs leaves to grow. So removing all the leaves won't work, but you can remove a lot of leaves off of it. That's something you want to know. So you get the hose underneath. You water under at the base of the plant. So if your plant is growing, you water underneath, and that's all you need to do is make sure you keep it damp. So if you have to during the day, in the hottest part of the day, just make sure your hose is underneath the plant. Now, a big thing to keep in mind is when you go to turn on your hose, yeah, some people will say, why don't you store it in the shade? Well, I don't. I have it dragged around to use. That hose will get to over, the water inside the hose will get to over 100 degrees. It can get as hot as 140 degrees, possibly even hotter, and you will kill your plant. If you put that hose next to your plant and you water the plant, there is no doubt you will fry and burn the roots and you will kill the plant. So make sure when you turn on your hose, when you're going out there during the day, in the heat of the day, that you have the hose completely away from your plants. Turn it on, touch it, touch the water, and make sure it starts to run cool. Once it runs cool, then you can go around and water your plants and make sure that everything's getting enough water, but you're not watering the leaves. So you can, at that point, take the hose and you can water all your plants around the base, your tomato plants, your beans, everything around the base, but make sure that the water is coming out and flowing out of your hose cool, because I've got like probably a 50 to 75 foot hose, and it will run for quite a bit of time hot. So make sure it's running cool at that time. And then once the water's running cool, if you've got bird baths and bird fountains and things like that, that's when you can top up your fountains and keep those fountains going, because I will tell you, the birds are having a hard time right now, and I know that we lost a lot of our hummingbirds around here because they did not come back last night, and I found a dead one in the yard. And I saw them in my kitchen window, and they were panting, and they had their mouth open. I wish I could have let them all in. Not that my house is that cool, but a lot of birds, the strong ones, know how to hide in trees and stay cool in cool areas, but a lot of your young ones are not smart enough, and they don't know. It's kind of like your dog wanting to go out and sun himself at 115 degrees. So, and dogs will do that. I have to keep my dogs locked in, my Yorkies, because they will. They'll go outside and they'll sun themselves. So I have to lock them in during the day, during the really, really hot weather. You'll have the lizards going around too, and they'll be coming around out to drink some of the water as you're watering during the day, and that's fun. And my 3-tier planter out there, that was really easy to water. All I had to do was water the top, and it was watering the whole thing, and that never even had any drooping problems or anything, because being 3-tiered, the 3 containers, the big bottom tub plastic tote, and then the tote on top, and then I've got a big round bucket on the top, the very top, all those create layers of mulch, so it stayed damp underneath and nothing separate in there. I've got in my 3-tier, I did a video on that one, I've got beans growing. I've got so much in there, I don't even know what's in there. I even found I grew parsley in there. There's carrot growing in there. There's beans. There's a couple different types of tomatoes growing in there. I've got purple sprouting broccoli growing in there. I've got dinosaur kale. I know I'm forgetting a whole lot of stuff because more things were popping up. So I've got all kinds of things growing in there. Onions, green onions, walking onions. If you have towers, like those stackable things that I've got that has like 3s, and you put extra plants all the way up and they get really tall, they're like 6-8 foot towers, make sure you water those in the morning because those do not retain a lot of water. So you can start from the bottom, work your way up, and then the top will also feed through to the bottom. It's been so hot, poor Gary went outside in the yard and he was trying to film something. and he found that his camera shut off in like 3 minutes because the cameras have a sensor and it will shut off to protect the camera. So yeah, stuff like that happens. Like I said, it has been incredibly hot. And even though it's going to ease up a little bit during the week next week, they say that and then we can end up with 100 degrees. And they better run out of their fireworks soon, because in the middle of the night, the idiots are still setting off fireworks, and we have fire season. Oh my goodness. Their firework display that they set off seems like it's bigger than the ones you get at these great big parks. I don't know where they get this stuff. A little scary that that stuff can slip through the system and end up here by the millions. Anyways, my swimming pool's in the front with the zucchini in it and all that. They were drooping, but as soon as the sun went down and I did not wet the leaves, they popped back up and the plant looked as good as new. So that's, that's important. Again, don't wet those leaves, and I think you can save your garden. Gary said he's had some damage in his garden with the vines, but the vines are really skinny on some of the yams that he's growing, so they'll come back if they dry up, but we'll see what happens with that. I haven't been down to his garden, so I don't know what's going on. So far I haven't seen much damage at all to mine, but I'm going to keep going through because sometimes something will look good and then it just might fizzle away. I think layering is the biggest thing. No matter what you're growing, if you're growing in a great big container, if you're growing in a smaller pot, you can always stack. I mean, even in this glass, I could always put something right here and layer something else. And then when you water the top, it waters everything underneath. And again, underneath anything, please remember that always stays damp, and that really helps plants, especially during the hot weather. So layering is great. And even if you're planting right in the ground, you can layer with pots next to it. And if you're not planting in the pots that are next to it, just make sure there's soil in there, wood chips, leaves, just water that, the water, and have small holes in those. And then this way it will slowly seep out and stay damp underneath. That can really save a lot of plants. So please, friends, any of you that have your garden out in your yard or in a big field and you're having problems, get a bunch of small pots. The plastic ones I use are about a gallon size. They're black. Get them without the holes and make small holes in them, and then set them all over and water that. And if you water that in the morning and then again at night, it will slowly seep into the ground to the plants that are right next to it, and plus it will stay damp underneath. So that should help. If you're in a severe heat place, some people don't get the heat we do, but a lot of vegetable plants don't like the heat, and that's why you want to protect them. I don't cover mine, but if you want to put a tent or a tarp or something over yours, you can do that. I have seen around the neighborhood a few gardens where they have put shade cloth on top. I haven't done that at all to mine. All I did was put the shade cloth up to protect some of the bird water fountains so the birds can have some water in the shade so it won't be so hot. I've seen the rabbits around here, and they've been eating a lot of the leaves because they're looking for water. I don't know how big they are on drinking water because there is water for them, but they've been taking a lot of the bottom thick leaves off of like the kale and the broccoli. I think that's giving them water too. So I guess that's pretty much it. The main thing is getting those leaves that the plant does not need off, getting the fruit that the plants don't need on, because this sucks up water and they have to keep this damp when it's on the plant. You can't remove any melons or squash unless it's ready to eat. If they're big enough to eat, remove them. Go through your squash leaves, get those off. And like I said, anything that's browning or yellowing and it's got enough new growth, get them off. One of our papayas fell off because of the heat, and so Gary harvested all the papayas. And that's about it. Water in the morning, and don't worry if they droop, and don't go out there and hose the whole thing down, because you could end up losing your whole garden over that. If I went through with a spraying hose and sprayed the whole garden, my whole garden would be gone. And you'll see, hopefully, the garden goes through, and mid-July when I go through, you'll see I didn't lose my garden. I know a lot of people have lost their garden. And I think the biggest problem is They water, they went out there, they saw everything drooping, they grabbed the hose, they had the sprayer on it, and they sprayed everything, and that will just cook the leaves. It's just like you'd be cooking it on the stove. You take your greens, put them in a pot, boil it up, turn it off, they're cooked. The moment the leaves are cooked, the plant or that leaf is gone. And if they lose all their leaves, you will lose your plants on most of them. That's why do not wet the top of the leaves during the heat of the day. That's the main thing. Don't get them wet. If you have to, put the hose underneath. So there's a lot of things you can do during a heat wave to possibly save your garden. I did throw some shade cloth around my yard, and I told Gary, don't touch it, don't try to move it, because I'm not trying to shade the plants. What I was actually doing was I was shading the water fountains for the birds, so they would have a few of them that would be completely, hopefully, out of the sun to keep the water a little bit cool. And again, make sure if you're feeding hummingbirds, keep the hummingbird feeder full. But again, if they don't know what to do and how to shelter in cooler places, a lot of animals don't really do well at that point. And it's been a little upsetting, because I'm looking over at my kitchen window with the hummingbird feeder. Normally there would be just so many, but I think a lot of them just didn't know what to do with this heat. It's been brutal, just brutal. And last night it cooled down to about 85 degrees. That's as cool as it got. Like I said, I don't have air conditioning. Actually, we do, but we haven't used it in 20 years. Ran it once, and it was like $400-500 and for a few days. So what I have is ice buckets, and my dogs are laying by their ice bucket. They know their ice bucket, and they've got an ice bucket in different rooms, so they can kind of lay wherever they want. And that's really easy. You can make one of those yourself out of a 5-gallon bucket, which we did. And then I just keep some milk jugs, great big gallon milk jugs, keep them in the freezer. Oh, also, even if you're not cooling your house and you don't have air conditioning and you just are using fans, if your freezer in the house has space in it, make sure before it gets hot that you keep some jugs in there of water. Not so much to drink or anything, but that space with the jug of, let's say, a gallon jug from milk, water in there, that will freeze and help keep it cool so the refrigerator doesn't have to work as hard. And it's worked perfect for us. We used to have problems with the freezers, and now we just keep a jug in there, a frozen jug of water, and it really helps to keep the coolness in there and keep the freezer from working so hard. It actually worked when we lost our electricity for 24 hours. We had so many, we threw them into the refrigerator, and it kept the refrigerator cool. So I hope with that I gave you some ideas, and if you've got any spies around your property, make sure you get a photograph of them. No wonder Gary comes in and comes up with an idea. I'll say, hey, I came up with an idea. I just did something in my garden. He'll say, well, wait, let me tell you what I'm going to do. And it's what I had done, and he thought of it before I got to say it. Have a great day. And don't forget to eat what you grow. And hope you stay cool this summer. And if you're on the other side of the world, I hope you're staying warm. Have a great day. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Don't forget to drink your mint tea. And try not to spill it all over you like I did. It's the funny glass I'm using. Chocolate mint, my favorite. Drink that all day.